Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to what some consider the greatest poem of this cluster, Thanks in Old Age. Now, we learned today, tragically, that a dear colleague of Worland High School passed away, the great Dave Bellis, passing away today, the 4th of April, 2023, and our hearts are heavy and our prayers go out to Mr. Bellis's family. He was a dear colleague of mine, and I want to dedicate this set of comments to him. It works so well to think, because Dave was a great believer in gratitude and in thanking his students and his colleagues for all of the opportunities that he had as one of the great music teachers of Worland High School's history. Now, we are back to Whitman here and his Thanksgiving. That is to say, what are you happy for? And it's interesting, as he got older, he was able to begin to put it all together and say, this is what I'm most grateful for. Now, this is poem 39 of the 58 of Stanza 70, so we are beginning to move towards the end of this cluster. Our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, and that you are with us from the very beginning, and the introductory invitation word come all the way up through and including inscriptions and our study of Song of Myself and Song of the Open Road, where obviously ideas of gratitude and gratefulness and thankfulness were all part of that reading. We gave a set of introductory comments to Stanza 70 I'm hopeful that you're familiar with, and then we just finished with Calming Thought. Now, our Nortons will tell us not much about this one, other than to say, one manuscript scrap is a rough draft of the first 8 lines, another of the last 5. Although both of these the Hanley manuscript will bear Whitman's notation, published November 25th, 1887. It was actually published November 24th in the Philadelphia Press, so obviously we've got Thanksgiving. It was reprinted in the New York World, November 23rd, 1890, there entitled Walt Whitman's Thanksgiving. And you know, you could make the argument that one of the things that Whitman is trying to get us to consider as young students is the value of thanking, right? Those who have, as we say in our study of Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey, who have performed little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and love for us. To be thankful, to have some gratitude for that, because our lives are constructed around those little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and love. And I also want to point out that I think that Whitman is here channeling Marcus Aurelius, especially Meditations. We commented on this elsewhere at learnstrong.net. But do you remember Meditations, the way he begins, this book to himself, where he said thank you to all of the people who were a part of his life. And Tennyson will say in Ulysses, I'm a part of all that I've met, right? That is to say, everything is for me somehow a construction of my life around all those different things. And so here's our thanks. And we're going to get 11 fours, thank you for, and then we're going to go to it. You'll remember Old Age in Sonnet 45, Song of Myself 45. You remember old age superbly rising, oh welcome ineffable grace of dying days, this idea of the old age and the way he uses that term. And then you'll remember thanks from Return of the Hero 7. Thanks in old age, he says, thanks ere I go. In other words, as I'm getting closer to dying, I'm ready to say thank you. And what is he grateful for? I love this list, because here's the list of an old genius poet who's going to tell us now all the things that he most enjoyed in his life. For health, the midday sun, the impalpable air, for life, mere life, for precious, ever-lingering memories of you, my mother dear, you, father, you, brothers, sisters, friends, for all my days, not those of peace alone, the days of war, the same. That's the theodicy question of drum taps. Why did we have to fight a war? Don't ask why does this happen to me, but rather why did this happen for me and for us. The days of war, the same. For gentle words, caresses, gifts from foreign lands. By this point, Whitman was receiving some of that. For shelter, wine and meat. For sweet appreciation, maybe a longing for fame. And then in parenthetics, you distant, dim, unknown, or young or old, countless unspecified readers beloved. We never met and never shall meet, and yet our souls embrace long, close, and long. Notice that's all in parenthetics. I love this, much like Brooklyn Ferry. Yes, he reaches out and he touches, he embraces the reader, he embraces us. It's truly remarkable. And again, this word embrace takes us, I told you guys, back to the hugging, embracing, clinging. Now we're back to it. More things he's happy for. For beings, groups, love, you knew that was coming. Deeds, words, books, you knew that was coming. For colors, forms, for all the brave, strong men, devoted, hardy men who've forward sprung in freedom's help all years, all lands. For braver, stronger, more devoted men. And then a special laurel ere I go to life's war's chosen ones. Again, back to drum taps. The cannoneers of song and thought, the great artillerists, of course, we think immediately of the poems of drum taps. The foremost leaders, captains of the soul. And I know that Mr. Bellis is smiling now as I say it, that his students understood that that's what he was, a captain of the soul. And then he'll say it, as soldier from an ended war returned, as traveler out of myriads to the long procession retrospective. Thanks, joyful thanks, a soldier's, travelers, thanks. I love that at the end of his life, Whitman was identifying with the very soldiers that he took care of as a wound dresser. He was identifying with all of the travelers. He himself, not much of a traveler, and yet identifying. It's a brilliantly constructed poem. It's a beautiful poem, and I think it speaks directly to our own loss of such a great man in Dave Bellis. At 2A, well, I love that what we're being reminded here is, as we've said so regularly, you only get to swing at the park for a very short period of time, as they taught us when we were children. And they said it was time to go to the van, and we said, I don't want to go to the van. No, honey, you don't get to swing at the park forever. You got to go to the van. The van's always waiting. It's just a matter of how well we swing at the park. And our lives are so precious for that reason. But of course, we normally don't think about giving thanks to the ways our lives are constructed until we get older. And as seniors in high school, we often will begin to think about and process the challenges of our high school experience, and then we're ready to start thanking the coaches, the teachers, the mentors in our lives. Obviously, it makes sense to try and ask the question of thanks before the very end. At 2B, I love all the anaphora. I love the repetition of 4, 11 times. Thank you for, thank you for. We mentioned at 3A, of course, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Go back, and we've given full lectures at learnstrong.net over that brilliant passage, but it's so incredible to ask, you are a constructed individual by virtue of all of the people of your life. Who are those people? Have you given them thanks? If they're still alive, then obviously it makes sense to give them thanks. And if they are past, then it obviously makes sense to at least mention them as you're grateful for them, in the same way that we are commenting on Dave Bellis' passing today. Finally at 3B, well, you can kind of predict how we're going to try and own a poem like this. Who are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? I love that he mentions the sun. Isn't that awesome that he even says that? I'm just so happy I got to have the sun on my face. Go back, of course, and read Song of the Open Road. Afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road, healthy, free, the world before me, the long brown path before me, leading wherever I choose. The fact that you have been able to live a life where you could choose. And finally, who are the captains of your soul? Who are those that are reminding you that your life and my life is constructed through little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love, as Wordsworth says it in Tintern Abbey. Those that we, hopefully, will perform, and obviously the ones that we've received for so long. I'm hopeful that maybe Whitman becomes for you one of the captains of your soul. Thank you. And thank you, Dave.